master was able to put into words what a lot of other people can just vaguely sense. And he also had the courage to just live the reality that he was without any regard for how other people saw or perceived him. It's really quite amazing when you think about his incarnation, born in India, in Calcutta, in Bengal, became the disciple of a great guru himself, Sri Yukteswar, trained, lived out what's called the Leela, the divine play, where his realization was already there before he was born, but it was necessary for him to live a life that would be an example also for us. This is how the great saints live. The way I think of it is like this. We're in the astral world, we, the collective rest of us, whose pictures are not here, which I can see as all of us. And we're in the astral world between incarnations. And we've had whatever story we had in playing the part that we're all wearing these bodies. Let's say we're going in the future. And we've lived our lives as best we can, and then the body wears out and the body dies. The soul goes into the astral world. And we don't really become radically different. Movies have become extremely helpful in us helping to grasp this picture, because now in the movies when someone dies, the same actor just rises out of that body. And so we get the picture, which is actually philosophically pretty sound. That's pretty much exactly what happens. Swami Kriyananda has emphatically stated, nothing happens when you die. And people who go through these death and return experiences, what happens to them is this great sense of liberation, because we don't think of this body as being heavy and confining because we're so used to it. But if we were all sitting here wrapped up in multiple layers of heavy coats, we would feel quite burdened, and we would feel quite free if we could take off all those heavy coats and then move around easily. And the hint of leaving our body is a little bit like that. It's just this thing that we were carrying around that we thought was ourselves, and suddenly when it's worn out and it falls off, there's a great freedom in it. And so the actors get up in the movie and they're just the same as they ever were, same personalities, same attachments, same lack of awareness or greater awareness, but all of a sudden there's a lot of light around them and they can walk through the walls, and the people in this world don't see them anymore. And the death and return people almost always talk about. Some death experiences are not nice. If you were a nasty person, you don't automatically become a good person when you die. You remain a nasty person and it gets worse. Those are not publicized as much because those are not such good sellers. But there's some really good stories about people who suddenly realize how error-driven their lives were, and they're given a chance by coming back to straighten that out. I'm just going to digress. One of the most interesting one was a strong intellectual professor who was powerfully anti-God. And he used his position as a professor and his intellectual prowess and his reputation to constantly mock and argue people who had faith and people who were divinely inspired in any way. And then he had a heart attack and he went to the other side. And he suddenly saw on that side that there is, in fact, this enormous spiritual reality which is hovering just beyond our sight and far from the world being what he thought it was. He realized that he was dreadfully wrong. And he was being plunged into the darkness that he had been pushing people into. Because he'd been pushing people into the idea that there's nothing really going on here. You live, you die, what difference does it make? You know, this idea of faith and hope and a greater reality and expansion of consciousness, it's all baloney. And he made fun of it and he mocked people and he turned them away. So he just got the consequences of his own action. There he was, separated from all the familiar, all the ego power that he was used to exercising. And so the darkness was just taking his hope away. And he got to feel what that was like. But then he came back. And all of a sudden, he was a profound man of faith. He lost his wife, he lost his professorship, he lost the respect of all the people around him. He'd built a whole life on his, what I can only call blasphemy. But the man had the courage, having seen another reality, to step back from it and then live the truth after that. It's a very interesting story. There was a couple of others. I don't even recall where it came from. I have them on my computer. If anybody wants them, I can send them to you. Swami Kriyananda found the book. Because he kept saying too, not everybody who has a death and return is nice. Some of them must have gone to hell. And so he was very pleased to find this book in which people did talk about going to hell. So let's say that we're basically nice people. We've gone to the astral world, and we're very happy to be outside of our bodies. And the nice thing about the astral world is it's homogeneous vibrations. What that means is you are with your kindred spirits, because it's a vibratory universe, and vibrations can only meld with like. I was speaking earlier, when you hear a group sing together, everybody has to pitch to the right notes, and then all the voices blend. And if anyone is dissonant to that, they can't blend. The planet that we live on, this planet, there goes the planes, this planet where we are right now, is an extremely heterogeneous vibration, which is there's just all these different things. I believe to get into this building, we walk by the liquor store, and there's the big sign that says food right there, that big one. And there's just all of these different things happening at the same time. Here we are in this office complex, and we sort of sneak in here, and then suddenly we're chanting, Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Gopal, and all of these beautiful songs, but all around us very different things are happening. For the first 7 or 8 years that my husband and I were running the Ananda Center in Palo Alto, where we still are now. We've been there almost 30 years. The first 7 or 8 years, we had a series of office complex churches, just like this one. And one that we had was above Kinko's copy shop. And often we pretended that the sound of the machines was Om. You'd hear them copying downstairs. But we had great experiences up there. But we come out onto the sidewalk, and across the street from us, there was a nightclub. I think it was actually called The Void. Was it called the? No, excuse me, The Vortex. Void would have been just too good a name for it. It was The Vortex. And they played very, very heavy, hard music like that. And sometimes we'd come out of our upstairs place, we'd just been having these extremely, refined experiences. And you could actually feel the bass through the sidewalk from the other side of the street. And the building was painted black, and almost everybody who went in there wore black. I mean, it was comical. They all just wore black to go in there. And they would be in this dark place, and they'd, just all be doing that, and just like, wow, what a planet. Here we are. We all get to be just all shoulder to shoulder what we want to be. Well, the astral world is more fun, because the astral world, you're just with your kindred spirits. You can go down in vibration, and by down what I mean is to I want to use the word gross, but I mean that by a less subtle vibration. Because what we're talking about really is subtlety. People come into our temple in Palo Alto. It's a beautiful big room and so on, and some people just walk in and walk out. It's like, as far as they can tell, there is nothing going on in there. Just nothing. They'll sit for a little bit of the service, and they'll kind of wait for it to start, because it's happening on a vibrational level that they simply can't see. And so they walk in and they look around, and then they walk out and they never come back. Others walk in and there's this immediate match, and there's just this blend. They come in and they never leave. And in the astral world, we just go to where we belong. And we can go down to people who are less aware and try to help them come up. But we can only look up to a higher vibration. And those beings will come down and help us, but we have to change our own reality in order to merge. And that's what we're all doing, and that's why you all are here. This is why you come, this is why I've devoted my life to this practice, because somewhere along the way, and it starts in incarnations before this one, because this is a very subtle teaching, so you don't sort of just wander in here the first time it occurs to you that there's something going on other than the obvious. But what we're all doing here is we're trying to hear this much more subtle tone of the Om, if you want to think of it like that, and then bring ourselves into attunement with that. We bring ourselves through our voices, through singing, through our thoughts, by our positive relationship, by the love of our hearts and opening and compassion and embracing of the world around us. And in this way, we feel that we're a fixed entity. And our bodies have physical reality, and I can pound on the floor and the two forces resist. It feels material. But even the scientists tell us now that there's nothing solid about any of this. This is all just energy vibrating in certain patterns. We can't see it with our physical eyes, but it's a simple fact. Now, the wonderful fact about that is that there is nothing about this universe, ourselves, or even our own body that is fixed. It is entirely a question of how we tune ourselves. When Duty has her guitar, her 12-string guitar, she now has this little nifty item at the end of it, which helps her to tune the strings. When she hits the string, the little electronic thing will tell her whether she's on the right vibration. These are the electronic devices. And this is the string, the heart and the spiritual eye. And how we can tell whether we're singing the right note is the right note brings joy and freedom, and the wrong note brings misery. Unfortunately, the wrong note does not bring misery immediately. If it brought misery immediately, it would be easier. In fact, instant karma is good karma, because instant karma happens fast enough for you to get the cause and effect. I'll give you a marvelous instant karma story. When, starting in 1986, my husband David and two other friends of ours, Durga and Vidura, we started taking pilgrimage groups to India. And this was at a time when those of us at Ananda, most of us hadn't been to India, and so we, over the course of 20 years, we took quite a few hundred people to India, mostly Americans, mostly people who'd never been there before. India has modernized, phenomenally since we started going there, so it was more difficult and a little bit just different than it is now. But the first or second trip, I had very fixed ideas about what I wanted to do, and I really liked to keep that trip under control, and I really wanted to go here and go there and do this and do that. And a lot of times our local guides had very strong opinions about what they wanted us to do, which was not the same. And we were in Varanasi, the city of Benares, which Master says Los Angeles is the Benares of the West. Benares is one of the holiest cities in India, one of the oldest inhabited cities in the world. Nobody knows how long it's been there, and it's always been a holy place. So our local guide was a very nice man, was quite proud of his city, and my phrase is, he hijacked our bus. And he hijacked our bus and insisted on taking us to the certain Durga temple. You're nodding your head, you probably know what it is. The certain Durga temple, Durga is the image of Divine Mother that's very, very holy. It's also called the monkey temple because it is overrun by monkeys. And in a country where ahimsa is practiced, you can't just eliminate the monkeys. You have to figure out how to work with them. You can't just poison or kill them, thank God, but you can't. But it's a problem. So our guide hijacks the bus, and he takes us to the Durga temple. I'd only been to India a few times at that point. I was really not happy to be there. And as soon as I arrived, this priest, who knows why, he picks up this marigold garland that's really way past its freshness date and puts it over my shoulders because I'm group leader. Group leader. They put the marigold garland around me. It has this putrid odor coming from it. I can hardly stand it. I keep taking it off and putting it somewhere, and then he finds it and he comes and he puts it back on me again. So I'm having to do this, and there are all these monkeys, and you have to be very careful where you walk because of the monkeys, and monkeys poop rather randomly, so there's a great deal of monkey poop. There is this really old image of Durga, like centuries and millennia really this image has been worshipped. And so I'm having to walk through this place with this rotting garland around my neck, being annoyed by the whole thing. And so I'm just thinking really bad thoughts. really bad thoughts about India, about old temples, about crummy old images and everything. And I become very careless, and I'm not paying attention to where the monkeys are. And I walk between two groups of monkeys. And a monkey jumps on my back like this. He just jumps right on my back. It's amazing what you do in a moment of emergency. Apparently, my friend told me later, I lifted the monkey off my back, I threw him on the ground, then I was wearing a skirt, and he sank his teeth into my skirt. Thank God I had a skirt on, not pants. He just sunk his teeth into my skirt, and I threw him off, and I said, "Get off of me, you filthy thing!" And I threw him on the ground, and then I start fighting with him for my skirt. Let go, let go, let go, like this. And finally, he just ripped a big piece out of the skirt, like this. By now, of course, everybody in the temple is around. I mean, they're totally freaked out. Group leader gets killed by monkey. Doesn't really, it doesn't play well in the local press. And I just played this whole thing out, but instantly, I just knew exactly what had happened. I could see Mother Durga over there. Mother Durga's vehicle is a lion, correct? Yes, a lion. And she's a powerful. She killed the demon. She carries all these weapons. And I mean, I just looked over at this old statue and I heard her say, "Don't mess with me, girl." Just like that. And I was so grateful. And I went home, and after I got home, I went to the fabric store, and I got a little decal of a monkey, and I sewed it on the hole of my skirt. And every time I go to India, I'd wear that skirt, and I just look at that, and I'd remember, we can't get too smart with our tiny little bit of knowledge. We have a little tiny peek of what's true, and we're not stupid. It's not like everything we think is wrong, but really, is this the limit? Is this the best we're ever going to be? Isn't that a horrible idea? Isn't that the definition of hell? That this is it? This is the best that we'll ever be? We can be solid in what we have accomplished and what we do know. We have reason for pride. We have intelligence and ability and magnetism. But we also have to always be ready to imagine that we're really just babies taking the very first step. That's why these masters come. That's why they walk on water and casually raise the dead and turn water into wine and just do miraculous, unusual things, just heal the sick, and because they're just trying to say to us, you have no idea. You have really no idea. But would you like to learn? Would you like to be more than you are now? Is your heart satisfied with the experience that you're having at this time? Well, I was going back to the astral world where we were, and we're living there in the astral world. We have all lived there many times because that's where we go between all of our incarnations, and even if we don't remember them, we've been there. And we sort of remember it because we come back to this world and we try to replicate what we remember. People who make beautiful art, who make beautiful physical spaces, who love beautiful colors and beautiful music. It's that we remember a higher vibration. And those who are really tuned in like that find it easier to just pass this through. We make our homes look like what we remember. And some people's homes, they're black and brown and the windows are closed and everything is heavy and there's no light because that's the astral world they came from. That's what they're comfortable with, is cramped and dark. And other people are just desperate for expansiveness and beauty and harmony because we remember that. That's where we really live. That's where we come from. But we also have all these different desires. Just all these things that we are convinced are essential to our happiness. And it's not, it's more subtle than just saying, oh, that's a stupid thing to feel. It's more like we have to really train ourselves to sing the right notes. And the only way that we can really understand what the real happiness and beauty producing notes are is to just try them out with our own voice and see what they sound like. And this is why you can't really tell somebody to be different than they are. In the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about the progression of learning to accept these teachings. When you first hear about them, you don't even hear it. It's just spoken and you don't hear it. Then you hear it a little bit later, and for just an instant you're interested, and then you immediately forget. And then you become, you sort of eavesdrop. And then finally, step by step, it attracts you. And what that's about entirely is what the heart is drawn to, where we think our happiness is going to come from, who do we think we are, what are we seeking in life. And so we're there in that freedom between the incarnations, but there's all these lingering hopes and unfinished business. I was talking to Swamiji once about reincarnation, and he said what draws us back to reincarnate again are two primary realities. He says regret and longing. Those are very powerful words when you think about it. When we just begin to do our life review, which we ought to be doing every day, no point, why wait? Why wait till you're at the end and you've got the whole lifetime to sort out? Why not stay current? It's much easier to do it in small bites at the end of every day. The end of every day, well, how did that go? What am I still longing for? What do I regret? How powerfully can I simply release all of those realities? Because they will draw us back again and again. And as I say, it's not just what we desire, it's also what went wrong, what we feel guilty about, what we're worried about. If only I could have. If only I could have gotten there in time, he wouldn't have died. If only the last word I had spoken to him were kinder. If only I'd been aware of what she really needed. If only. And when we die, those things don't go away. They are vibrations of consciousness within us. And that's what helps determine where we go. We go to sing the melody that is the melody that we've been singing. And we're there in the astral world and we get kind of a break. It's kind of like going to Hawaii. It's like Hawaii, now is less so, but Swami remarked that Hawaii, especially before the missionaries came and made it different. A friend of mine once explained the rather complicated karmic relationship that she and I had together, is that she was a naked tribes person and I was a British missionary who put her in a muumuu. And you can well imagine there was a certain tension in our relationship. But once she articulated it, every time we'd sort of go there, I'm trying to curb her and get her to be more ways that she doesn't have any wish to be. We just go back to the naked tribes person and the British missionary, and we were fine again. But Hawaii before, it was Swamiji said it was almost like not incarnating. You could just eat from the trees. You were sheltered by the palm branches. You didn't have to put out any effort. So there's a certain effortless ease to the astral world. We can just relax. And we think we want to relax forever. Now, personally, my husband and I have never hit the limit of how long we can vacation. I really don't know what that limit is for us. But most people hit the limit of how long they can vacation. You're restless to get back to work. So we rest in the astral world for quite a long time, and we enjoy the lack of challenge. The fact that we can just effortlessly manifest what we want, and everybody is just like us, whatever that us is, but we feel at home in it. But then these regrets and these longings, just like they do on this plane of existence, they begin to eat at us. And we become restless. I often think of it like this, and the way reincarnation happens is, let's say you set aside a whole evening at home. I'm going to meditate, I'm going to read spiritual books, I'm going to do a full set of yoga postures, I'm going to watch something uplifting of Swami Kriyananda on the video, this is my night. Gee, I'm a little hungry though. We open the refrigerator, there's really not much in there. That pizza in the place just down the street is so good. I think before I do any of this, I'll just go get that pizza. So you go down the street and you're at the pizza place and whoa, one of your friends walks in and he says, we're heading off to the movies. Do you want to go to the movies? Let's have the pizza, let's go to the movies. You go to the movies, you go out afterwards, you have some coffee, you talk. Then you come home and you say, oh yeah, I had a whole different plan, didn't I? But some little longing gets in the way and off you go. I think that's what it's like in the astral world. We're just enjoying what's going on there, and this is God's own plan. This is not really our failure. And then this little voice comes that says, you're not finished. There's still, you have unlearned lessons. That's what karma is. There are still realities that can unsettle you and move you off your center of divine peace. I want this, I have to have that, I must make this right, this person has to respond. And bingo, you wake up and you are in a kid's body again. Master says the reason that babies cry at the first breath, he said, is because they say exactly, oh no, here I am again. Look what I've gotten myself into. And then stretching out in front of them all those unlearned lessons that have to be faced. But there's a point at which the whole process shifts around. And instead of hiding from those lessons, we decide it has to be faced. I think I'll face it now. When Jesus in the Bible says if someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him the left also. He wasn't really counseling us to be cowardly or passive or doormats at all. But if someone hits you like that, what is your natural instinct? You're going to shrink from it, isn't it so? And if we have some karmic challenge that comes to us that feels like a slap on the face, what is our first instinct? We pull back from it. And Jesus is saying, not at all. Something difficult happens to you, step forward into it. Whoa. Because it has to be resolved. And that restless vibration of regret or longing or fear or reluctance or smallness, that's the definition, that's the description of the space between our experience and our potential freedom. And how long it takes us to finish that, it's really up to us. The masters tell us, which is really scary, that we can just be as we want to be for as long as we want. Even eternity, essentially. I mean, sooner or later we get it straightened out. But we can go through what they call whole cycles of creation, days and nights of Brahma, which are endlessly long periods of time. We're all manifested, we wander around in delusion, the whole thing is pulled back, and some people are still wandering around in delusion and it comes out again. Delusion means in a limited state of bliss, because we imagine that this is really where my happiness comes from, thinking that all these shiny objects that we see are themselves the source of the light. If you take a flashlight and shine it on a bunch of tinfoil, the tinfoil sparkles, doesn't it? And we think, shiny object, I want that. But we don't understand that the light is actually within us. And we are giving light to those things, and they merely give back to us what we give to them. Every time I stepped out of our temple and we'd hear the vortex thumping away over there, I would just think, isn't this interesting? Some of these people just got so happy that it was Friday or Saturday night and they got themselves looking so good so they could go to the vortex. Somebody dragged me to the vortex, I would feel like I was being tortured. Just like, I'd done some horrible thing, and instead of burning me at the stake, they're going to tie me to a table in the vortex and make me sit there and listen to that all night long. For me, oh, it's Saturday night, here's my meditation cushion, and I'm going to go Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Because we all have a different idea of what's going to give us happiness. And experience is the only teacher. So we mustn't be afraid of our karma, and above all, we mustn't shrink from facing into it, because sooner or later you're going to get into it. You don't really get out of it by hiding under the table. There was a boy in our community, he's actually a very good friend of mine now, he's now 26. But for some reason, when he was 2 or 3, he really was very shy and didn't like people. And he would spend a lot of time under the chairs. And when you would try to talk to him, hi, he would just sort of kind of make this wailing noise and shrink back a little bit. Actually, it was epitomized finally when his father brought him up for a blessing in the Festival of Light. He was about 3. His father's carrying him up to be blessed. And he comes up to me and he goes like this in full voice. He puts his hands over his forehead so I can't touch him, and he starts screaming, no, 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 like that. He's grown up to be a disciple, but just no, he wasn't going to take it. And I thought it was hysterical. The whole church just burst into hysterical laughter at that point. His father took him out and had a very stern conversation with him. But The choice is ours, you see. Do we hide under the chairs and shrink at every possibility of growth? Do we cover our heads and our hearts and say, no, no? Or do we say, all right, Lord, it has to be faced sooner or later. Why not now? That's the question you have to ask yourself every day. Sooner or later, why not now?